Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause and Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So happy Wednesday, guys. Wednesday evening. Cannot believe it's that time of the week again. Just because it's so wholesome, I'm going to explain my current recording setup. So I am laid horizontally on the sofa in my living room, and Ethel is sat tucked into me, looking out the window. So Ethel is right next to me. Say hi, Ethel. Say hi. That was her licking her lips twice, if you heard that. Anyway, so if she starts barking, then maybe you're just going to go deaf, I'm afraid. That's how close she is. But anyway, yeah, how are we all, guys? This week, I'm going to be telling you how I design and set my courses as someone who is both an agility judge and an instructor. So I have to set courses pretty much all days of my life because my job, I'm a trainer. So I'm doing that anyway. As an instructor, I don't, unless it's a workshop or a specific training day, for my own clients, I don't design courses on Smarter like I would when I was judging or for a workshop. I just kind of make them on the spot with the equipment that's there. Because obviously I rent a field that other people use, and when I get there, I can't lug around all the equipment by myself unless I want to have the venue for an extra hour. So I get creative, and to be honest, I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy creating courses on the spot, but obviously in a scenario with more of a time constraint, so judging and workshops, then I obviously want to go in with a course planned. And obviously you know what equipment you've got, and you'll have people helping you set up and stuff like that. So that is what I'm going to go through today. This was a few of you actually requested I do an episode about this. So whether you're just interested and you run my courses and you're interested in the thought process behind them, or you are also a judge or instructor, or you want to become a judge or instructor and would like to know how to go about setting your courses, then hopefully today will give you a few insights into that. So first of all, obviously a weekly recap, business as usual, to be honest, except GB tryout weekend 2 we obviously had. So to be honest, on Saturday I was quite disappointed. It was an off-course equipment day in Arrowland apparently. There was just an off-course piece of equipment in each of the 3 runs, which meant 3 E's, which I was disappointed with, to be honest. But he got 2 out of 2 seesaws, which was incredible. The first one was actually a full-on stop. And if you were there and heard me or were watching the live stream, you probably heard me go, wow, super touch, and leave him on it for like 5 seconds. But yeah, that was cool. And he got the other one as well. And also 3 out of 3 start lines, 2 of which he did not even creep once. Like, he didn't even creep an extra foot in front of him, like an extra paw, an extra step, none of it. One, he did creep about 3 or 4 steps, which was fine. But 2 of them, by then Ethel, 2 of them, he did not creep at all. He literally stayed exactly where I left him, which was incred. But yeah, so after Saturday, I was like, you know what? I can definitely feel the impact of our 5-month competition break now. When we're faced with courses like the ones at tryouts that require such connection and flow. And to be honest, on Saturday, we were feeling more like 2 separate parts instead of one connected team, like we got to at the end of last season, which is expected. The timing is unfortunate considering the importance of this time of year, but I have no doubt that our connection will return very soon, and we were feeling so in sync at the end of last season, so there's no reason why we can't get back to that with time. Hopefully, it'll only take a couple of months. Now we're cracking on back into competing and the season. But yeah, no, super pleased with his seesaws and start lines, and he still did some really cool stuff in there that I was pleased with. Then Sunday was obviously the second day, and what the jumping run I absolutely loved. He just followed me through 2 jumps and took the last pole trying to follow me again because it was a little layery situation. So there were 2 layery situations where he just wanted to come with me more. So it was 10 faults, but I was still really pleased with it. Same with the agility run. Oh, such a hard course, and we did get E'd, but he did some really nice stuff and bailed me out when I was too far behind him and stuff. And to be honest, he is just so fast. I will never beat him to certain places. And he's always been a super clingy dog. And he can be super independent in training, like when I was walking for the past, 6 months. But then in competition, I think not having competed for 6 months, he's lost his confidence a bit again. And despite all the distance handling we did and nailed, like he was doing it really well during our competition break, he does seem to be clinging to me a lot now we're back, which he used to do a couple of seasons ago a lot. So hopefully, like I said, a few months of confidence building at shows again will do the trick and we'll get back to normal. So yeah, that's the end of the GB tryout process. And to be honest, not the results I wanted over the whole process, but we did our best under very much less than ideal circumstances. And as always, I'm proud of Arrow for always running his silly little heart out for me. He really does try, bless him. He just wants to please me. And it's left me feeling super determined to get back to where we were last season, which I hopefully don't think will take long. But that was pretty much it. That is all that's really happened majorly in the past week. Yeah, because it was crossed before that and you all know about that. Got an amazing photo of Arrow, a professional photo by Yulia at Four Little Paws Photography of Arrow and myself in the main ring running in the YKC Jumping Cup final where we came third. It is now my cover photo on Facebook and it's all over social media. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. It's amazing. Yulia's photos are always awesome. To be honest, actually, I completely forgot I did this, but I did an episode with Yulia all about the life of a dog photographer who specialises in agility and, working dogs and stuff. So that was back in season 1, if you want to go and check that out. I think it was season 1, maybe 2, definitely not 3. But anyway, I can't remember. Just type in Yulia Titovets and you will find that episode. So yeah, that is my weekly update. So today's probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode because there are only 5 points to designing and setting courses, but obviously with all of what's the word? An amount of layers, all with layers to it. There is a word for that, like it begins with an F, I feel. But anyway, there are layers to each point, but I've got 5 points as to how I design and set courses as both a judge and an instructor. So let's get straight into them. So first of all, and this is quite obvious, is grade appropriateness. Now, before anyone says anything, because I know my courses do have a bit of a reputation to be on the tricky side or on the challenging side, or downright hard, as some people might say. But anyway, everyone's definition of grade appropriateness is different. Everyone believes that dogs should be practicing certain skills at different grades, I think. First of all, for grade appropriateness is lines. I mean, lines always have to be safe and that's that. But some lines are trickier. For example, slice lines and stuff like that. More fiddly lines, obviously all safe, but yeah, more fiddly lines than say for the higher grades than say a 1 to 3, which should really be more flowing lines and straightforward lines, but still with skills because you don't want it to be boring. So that's what I always think. I would never want to run a course and think I got nothing from that. It was boring, if that makes sense. Also with grade appropriateness is the skills that are required. So for example, you'll probably see layering quite a bit in the higher grade courses. I'll add a bit of that. Stuff like obstacle discrimination and traps. So you've got your my very popular tunnel under the dog walk scenario at Inspire a few months ago, lol. So yeah, traps and obstacle discrimination, obstacles that the dog, it's right there for them to take, but they've got to listen to you and not take it. You've maybe got to pull a dog off an obstacle like a tunnel, especially because our dogs love tunnels, don't they? Choosing between 2 obstacles. So relying on verbal cues instead of physical cues, which you would see in a higher grade course. But for lower grades, I'd set less that. I probably would set I wouldn't set layering. I would set traps, but not as obvious traps, and less of a need for verbal cue, relying on verbal cues only than the higher grades, but I'd still put it in. So in a lower grade course, I'd still put in maybe 1 example of where the dog has to obstacle discriminate on a verbal, whereas a 6-7 course. I may put 3 lots of those in a course, if that makes sense. Skills required, obviously, layering, handling maneuvers as well. So your different handling maneuvers, like in the lower grades, you'd probably want to rely more on people choosing rear crosses, front crosses, or pivots. Whereas in the higher grade courses, I'd probably say you'll see more ketchkers, threadle wraps, threadle slices, round the back, so your Germans, your SERPs, stuff like that. And again, in my lower grade classes, I like to include I do like to include some skills. So like a round the back, where a round the back wrap, for example. So the handler has to send the dog around the back of something where they'd probably want to take the face side. But it's not like they're going to be on the wrong side and they'll have to do it as a threadle wrap. They're probably going to be coming on the right side, so it will be easier for them. So stuff like that, you've really got to think on a course where the handler's coming from and where the dog's coming from and how that'll affect them at the next section. So you've always got to remember that. You can't just say, right, that section done, now this section. You've got to think, yeah, but where are they going to be after the section before, if that makes sense. So those are your handling maneuvers. And then, you're probably going to see more rear crosses than, say, blinds. So expect, blinds or fronts. You're probably going to see more rear crosses than blinds or fronts to get on the right side of the dog, for example. So you've got to almost assume in the lower grades your handlers are going to be further behind the dog. That's kind of what I've noticed. And I am awful. Well, not awful, but I'm getting better. But I find it tricky, shall I say, to think about what other handlers, especially lower grade handlers, how they will handle a certain section. Because when I design courses, I make the mistake of designing it as how I would run it. But then that often doesn't happen. So now I'm really, really learning to think about all the different ways one might handle this section, not just how I would handle it or the most ideal or efficient way of handling it. Think about all the options, especially when you've got the lower grade courses. You've got to think, right, how would someone who is new to the sport handle this and whose dog is faster than them, way faster than them, and they don't have independent skills yet, if that makes sense. So that's something I'm working on. I'm not perfect. None of us are. Independence and distance handling required as well. So you're probably you will want to set more independence and distance handling requirements in a higher grade course, because really young dogs or dogs in a lower grade are probably going to be a bit clingier, a bit more Velcro-y doggy, if that makes sense. Velcro-y doggy, what is that? New terminology right here. So you're going to see more independence in the high grade dogs because they're going to be more confident. You really want to think about confidence building in the lower grade courses. You want to encourage more confidence building for dogs that are newer to it and they just want to, have a bit of a blast, but obviously still get tested. Again, it's all about balance and moderation. Contact and weave exits as well. So in the lower grades, you're going to be wanting to set pretty straight exits from contacts, especially for the young dogs in lower grades with running contacts. You don't want to be asking them to do turns off running dog walks. Do you know what I mean? At that level, really, we want to be encouraging confidence, speed and flow. Weave exits, even off seesaws, to be honest. Like, you just want a nice, ideally not like a 90-degree turn off a seesaw, because dogs in a lower grade are probably still learning their criteria, especially in the ring. And the handler will probably want to go and support that a little bit more. So if you do a massive angle off of it, they're probably going to end up behind their dog. So it's thinking about that. Whereas in the higher grades, those more difficult contact exits have probably been trained, so you can include them. Weave exits as well. I think it's always good to practice different weave exits, to be honest. I don't think, because they're not coming out of the weaves with speed, so it isn't a safety issue like it is as such with contacts. But yeah, they're coming out pretty much, they're leaving the weaves and they're not at a standstill, but you know what I mean. They've lost speed in the weaves, obviously, because they have to do the weaves. So the exit, again, is not really about what the dog does after the weaves. It's more about where the handler's going to be. So in the lower grades, they're going to probably want to support the dog right up until the exit. So then where do they need to be, if that makes sense? So you probably want a nice straight bit after a weave exit. if you're going to turn them out of the weaves at an angle, for example. So it's thinking about those exits. I've said about traps, but yeah, all courses want to be smooth and flowing. But obviously, I think that they all still want to be challenging. So for me, I think, well, if you've got your grade 1 to 2 dogs, really, they should be some aspect of pushing more towards a grade 3 section, like maybe one skill that is a bit more challenging, just one. Do you get what I mean? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But I like to set little bits in each course that will push people to, almost to the realization of what they need to be working on, or what they're going to be seeing when they grade up, and stuff like that. And it's always really tricky when you've got really mixed grade classes. So like 1 to 3, for example, you've either got someone it's their first show, or someone who's one win away from grade 4. Do you know what I mean? So it is tricky and you can never please everyone. But that is how I kind of think about grade appropriateness when setting my courses. Next point is ring size and layout. So obviously you're going to want to know the ring size and the layout. So by layout, I mean, is it a square ring? Is it a long ring, more like Dog Sports Derby? Stuff like that. So first and foremost, I always think about leaving enough room for a safe start line and fast finish. So you want to leave enough room for the handlers to set their dog up with plenty of room between where they've set them up and the first obstacle, so that they can get a nice, safe run up. They're not going to, take one stride and hit the pole, for example, stuff like that. I always appreciate a nice long start line, a nice big start line section. Again, doesn't have to be huge, but enough. It's kind of common sense what's enough in that scenario, I reckon. And a fast finish as well. You've got to think, if your dog's, say, doing a running dog walk over the finish jump, it's going to be blasting. It's going to be going really quick, and you want to make sure that the dog has enough room to safely slow down naturally after that finish jump and not run straight into the fence or the wall or something. So it's thinking about those things. Potentially, if you don't have a lot of room, making the finish slower. So say around the back wrap and then the finish jump, that'll really slow the dogs down if you don't have a lot of room after the finish jump. So it's stuff like that. Also, obviously, enough space between obstacles. I know the minimum distance is 5 meters, but I usually do 6 to 8, I'd say, between obstacles, 5.5 before a contact. But apart from that, I do like to err on the side of more space between obstacles. I think because I'm more used to European style courses, stuff like that. But obviously it can be tricky, because often as well, you'll design a course with the specifications of the ring size and the layout that they've given you, and then get there and it actually feels completely different or smaller or bigger or whatever. So you can only do your best, but, and don't be afraid to obviously take obstacles out or add something in if you need to when you're actually there. You do not have to, just because you planned and designed it a certain way, you don't have to stick to that and that be it. It's not a rule. Do you know what I mean? You're the judge, you're the instructor. You can choose. It is up to you. Also, obviously, enough space after a dog walk or A-frame exit. Just thinking about those with running contacts, which are actually most dogs these days. You've got to think about how fast they're going to be coming off and what they're going into, if that makes sense. So you need to allow that space for them to come off fast. And how the ring is laid out, square, long, etc. So just making it nice for the layout. Again, there's no real right or wrong, but it's just taking that into consideration. And I know you don't have control over the kind of the space and the ring and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just taking it into consideration, controlling the controllables, as I like to say. So the third point then is the dog's height. So for judging and instructing, to be honest, you usually have all of the heights, or at least some of the heights, running the same course. It's rare that you go and you just have a small dog running that course, and that's it. That really doesn't happen. So you've got to cater to all heights, but I would recommend designing and setting for large, because let's face it, if a big, powerful, large dog can run a course safely, then a small dog can also run that course safely, if that makes sense. That's the kind of rule of thumb that I go by, and that's the advice that I've been given from more experienced judges before. And it's true, it makes total sense. So don't go in there thinking, oh, my first class is small, I'll design it for a small dog. Because remember, you've got the other ones too. And large dogs run totally differently to a small. Different stride dogs, different size dogs, different everything dogs, different build dogs. They're all so different, not just height, but build, how they run and stuff like that, how heavy they are, stuff like that. So cater to all dogs, but yeah, design for a large, powerful dog, and your course should be safe for all heights. As a, rule of thumb, again, that's just a general rule, but nothing set in stone. That is generally the guideline. Another thing to consider, and this is quite huge, really, if you think about it, when you're judging more than training, because training, you're not judging, obviously. You don't have to see everything, you don't have to, get a really, really good view of the contact, if that makes sense. You still want to see, obviously, but you don't have to be so on top of it in that sense. I always ask myself, can I see all the contacts clearly without having to sprint around the course? Because, funny story, at Edge, down in Swindon back in September, just before I got my stress fracture in my foot, I designed a course and didn't think about my judging path. And I ended up sprinting from the A-frame at the start of at one side of the course to the dog walk, it was literally a circle round to it on the other side of the ring, in my big waterproof hiking boots. And my mum's like, oh, I think that's set off the stress fracture. I'm like, oh my God, do not say that, because I'll be blaming myself then. But anyway, yeah, I was sprinting from the dog walk to the A-frame all day long for 8 hours. So yeah, let's not do that, okay? Learn from my mistakes. Ask yourself, can I stand in a consistent spot without getting in the dog or handler's way as well? So you do not want to be in their way. You may end up in their way if they choose a non-obvious or a bit of a silly route that just doesn't make sense and no one else would do, if that makes sense, which has happened before. And again, no right or wrongs, but in that scenario, you can't predict that they're going to go that way. So, you have to stand somewhere. So don't fret about it too much, but, kind of think, how are most people going to handle this? And think about the dog's line and the handler's line and their paths. And then where can you stand so that you're not going to collide or get in their way or affect their run? And that you can also see the dog at all times, especially contacts and weaves, because you have to be fairly close, or at least close enough, to get a fair look and really know if the dog has got the contacts or the weaves or jumped them or skipped a weave, stuff like that. So last point then is, what would I like to run at this level? So, oh, that was Ethel yawning. She's moved now, but that was still quite loud. You probably heard it. So what would I like to run at this level? So for 6-7, it's like, right, what course would I like to go in and run arrow over? And then I also have to think, right, if I had a young dog that was pretty new to agility, what would I like to run at that level? And do it like that, if that makes sense. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, personal preference will always factor in. And every judge and trainer has their own style. But to me, this is a good thing, because it's all part of the fun of running different people's courses. So if everyone's judging or course setting training style was the same, wouldn't that be boring? That would make the sport a lot more boring, in my opinion. So it's fun, you kind of, if you see a judge's name in the schedule, you kind of think, oh, I like their courses, or no, their courses don't suit my dog, which is fine either way. You're not going to make everyone happy as a judge or a trainer, but you're going to have your own style, and that's a good thing. That is what makes you unique as a judge. And there's probably a lot of people that think, oh, yes, I absolutely love their style of courses, and they enter all your classes, okay? So accept that you're not going to suit or, cater to every single person ever. That's impossible. But, you have your style, and just embrace that. And as long as you're doing your best to abide by all the points that I've mentioned, and put in dog safety first and stuff like that, you can't go wrong. You're doing your best, and embrace your style. And the people that like your courses will run your courses, and those that don't won't. And I always say, I'd rather people who don't like my courses just not run them. Do you get what I mean? Rather than bitching. And that's the last thing I want to say. Do not get down about the bitching. If you want to hear what happened to me... That was Ethel again. I hope you heard that. She literally speaks to me. I can't remember what I was saying now. Oh, yeah. If you want to listen to a story of what happened to me when I was judging a few months ago at Inspire, listen to my episode titled A Message to the Haters, because that was not a nice experience. But what I learned from that was just bloody ignore them. Really, really, really don't let them affect you. I know it's harder said than done. Normally I'm all right with it, but I was really ill that day and it just sent me. But we all get that. And don't let it put you off judging, designing courses, instructing. Just do your thing, okay? And that is it, guys. That is the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any more questions, obviously, about any of the stuff I covered in today's episode, please do send me a DM. What am I doing this coming week? I'm judging at Inspire on Sunday. So hopefully I will see some of you guys there. That will be fun. I'm looking forward to watching you guys run. And I hope you like my courses, basically. But if you don't, no hard feelings. So, yeah, that is pretty much it. Apart from that, just work. What else do I normally say? Oh, yes. So do follow me on social media. I'm on pretty much everything at Pause in Pursuit or Summer Clark. You're probably already all following me anyway. Make sure you're following the Pause in Pursuit podcast so that you don't miss another episode. There is an episode every Wednesday at 8 p.m. I have some very exciting guests coming on in the next few weeks, including Nikki Hinson. We'll be speaking about heel work to music and agility. And then Dr. Vicky Fraser, the Agility Team GB vet, about rehabbing and preventing injuries in agility dogs. So super, super cool, super fun, super interesting guests coming on the podcast shortly. So follow so you don't miss those. Keep sending me in your podcast topic recommendations, please. So whatever you would like me to talk about, either as a solo episode or what guests you want me to have on in future episodes and what topics you would like me to cover with them. And if you're feeling generous today, please do leave the podcast a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or both. I think you can do it on both. That would mean the world to me. And I also offer personalised one-to-one online agility coaching. That was very long. It's not actually called that. Online coaching for agility on a one-to-one basis. So if you still have some goals to figure out for this season, please do get in touch and I can help you figure those out. And if you would like to just level up your agility game with your dog this season, then I would love to help you. You will get a personalised program and constant support and feedback from me. So there is an inquiry form in the description of this episode. Fill it out and we can have a chat. No pressure. If we don't fit, we don't fit, but we can at least have a chat and see if we are a good fit. And I think that is everything I have to say to you guys today. I hope you all have a great week and I will speak to you, as always, next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Bye, guys.